Hello, everyone out there in podcast world. Hope you're having a great day. You're listening to or watching Service Business Mastery podcast. I'm your host, Tersh Blissett, sitting along virtually next to Joshua Crouch, my co-host. We're going to talk about today a little bit about the podcast, the future of the podcast for this year, our targets for the podcast, and kind of the state of the union of state of the industry type thing, and then where we're going to be going and seeing people live in the next quarter. So if you have any questions along the way, don't hesitate to ask them in the live chat if you're watching this live. And we look forward to sharing all this information with you.
Are you looking for valuable business advice to reach that 7-figure revenue mark? Do you want actionable tips to properly navigate through every business challenge you encounter along the way? Let Tersh Blissett and Josh Crouch be your guide in getting you to the top here at Service Business Mastery. Tune in as they sit down with world-renowned authors in business, leadership, and personal growth who share valuable insights about management, marketing, pricing, human resources, and so much more. Let their nuggets of wisdom gold guide you in owning a thriving, profitable, and ever-growing business. Here are your hosts, Tersh and Josh.
What's up, man? How's it going?
Good. It's cold. I got my house at 70. My hands are still freezing. I'm sure they almost feel like they're turning purple. So man, Wisconsin sucks in the winter.
It got cold here. It got into the 30s. So
into the 30s, man. That's like I'd go out in a t-shirt in 30s.
Yeah, no. That's not my cup of tea for sure. So
yeah, well, I'm come visit you in the winter. Oh man. So we got who's in Stevens Point? It just says Facebook user on my end. It's even colder up there. You guys are close to Green Bay where we got a Packer playoff game this weekend. I actually had who's the Packer? You know who the Packers are. Everybody knows who the Packers are. I was actually going to get tickets, and then I'm sitting there, I'm looking at the forecast. It's a Saturday night game, so it's going to be even colder. And it's like $250 a seat. I'm like, dude, I'm just going to sit here with my fireplace on and watch the game on a big screen.
And then you don't have to fight traffic leaving the game.
Well, and then the game's not going to end until 10:30. And then you're going to have an hour of traffic. The last time we went to a Packer game, we hit a snowstorm. It took us like 3.5 hours to get home. We didn't get home till like 2 a.m. So,
oh yeah, good old days.
Yeah.
That's for the young at heart. That's not for me.
Yeah, and as I get more gray or less hair, it just becomes a little harder to stay warm. So,
yeah.
But we got a ton of stuff going on with the podcast that we wanted to bring to you guys and talk about the state of the industry, because this industry in the last 2 years, especially coming up on 2 years in COVID, has changed. It's almost fun. I mean, if you took a snapshot of like March 1st of 19 to now, you might not even recognize the industry. It is totally different. The things that are going on, there's so much money being pumped into this industry, new software. Everybody's a sales trainer now.
It's scary. I mean, to me, it's terrifying. The uncertainty, obviously, is scary. As a business owner, it's scary to not have certain. I don't know. Obviously, things change throughout the years, but from 2005, I mean, we hit the recession in 2008. I wasn't a business owner at that time, 2007, 2008-ish. But I remember going through that, and I remember the scariness of that uncertainty. But once we worked through that, we were already a service company at that time. So we didn't do new construction, so it didn't affect us, other than the fact that there was a lot of people from the new construction side of things that came into the service side, and they weren't pricing themselves correctly because they're used to pricing for new construction. So that hurt us a little bit, but we just managed to work through that. But then we've never had to go virtual, and we've never been forced to not have an office space and stuff like that. So that's definitely changed our industry a lot. And you can really see the people who have shined by being the people who can pivot, like the people who knew like they were good enough or big enough to and had enough cushion and cash flow that they could weather that storm. And then there were other people who really struggled through that process. And we've seen success stories and failure stories, and we've seen people learn from those failures, and people who have learned even more from the success stories as well. So yeah, I'm excited to share that and talk more about it throughout this year, and really just share more information on the podcast too, because I mean that's the whole reason why we do this, right? I mean, we're not doing this to get rich. So
no, it's definitely not. Hasn't padded my bank account any.
Right.
No, but I mean, this really what it's about is giving back and making sure people get valuable information, and that's what we're trying to do. We if you're in our podcast Facebook group, we posted that we redid our website, and the purpose is to redo the navigation, because we want to make it super simple. If you have questions about marketing, you go right to the marketing tab and you get all of our marketing episodes. Now, it's not completely done. I did edit a few more today, so we're probably up to like 50 or 60 that are categorized. But ease of use, we have a search function on there if you want to search for like a key term and pull up episodes. Because again, if you're struggling with something, this is one of the podcasts, and books are one of the best ways to learn and learn quickly. The nice thing about podcasts is there's so many different angles you can take on subjects that you can learn so much in a very short period of time and start implementing right away.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And talk about change. If you go back and listen to episode 1 versus this episode, it's a drastic change for sure. Not only that, I mean, we have video chat now versus back then. I remember when Brian Orr, whenever he helped me first start the show, and we were going over this platform called Zencastr, and you couldn't see each other. You had to kind of anticipate what the next person was saying, and it was really, I mean, it might not sound like a struggle, but it was a major struggle to start off with. So another thing that Josh and I have talked about this a little bit in the past, and we didn't even talk about this before the show, but one of the things that I'd really love to be able to do is to help show you how to start your own show, start your own podcast, and not necessarily the exact same format that we're doing here, but more of a local format, how you can become the leader in your local community by using podcasts. And Josh is doing a stellar job at the marketing side of things for our show. And as he learns that stuff and can implement that, I think that'd be a massive value for him to be able to share that with y'all and be able to do that for y'all's businesses as on a local level.
Yeah, and I think and I posted that out there, and there's one company I can think of. I think Anthony Wright, the Scientech. I think he's got a local show. It's all about, I think it's in Louisville. But I love the idea because, first of all, I mean, you do some. I don't know if you still do it, but you did the Savannah
Shop
business.
Small SAV. Yep.
Yeah. So, but if you think about it, that's your target market: business owners, people in the community that have jobs and stuff like that. You can highlight those businesses, so you feel good. You get to meet people in the community. It's like networking on steroids for your local community.
It's evergreen content. Yeah, it's evergreen content. You can give it back to your fellow business owners in the community.
There he is.
Hey, Anthony. You can do marketing for them, and then that's great on the the giver's gain side of things. But then you also have the SEO value that you can add to this whole realm of things that we haven't even discussed. And if you get really good at it, the SEO from the podcast can help, really push your company's website also. And those are strategies that we played with. If you've followed along, you've seen us go from a one website that wasn't very easy to navigate to putting it on the Service Emperor's website as a subdomain, and then putting it back onto this own website that's a lot better than anything we've done so far. So we're playing with things to try and test out SEO on our end so that we can share with you the results. And we don't want to share them too fast. If you've seen it and you've had that struggle and you're like, what in the hell are they doing? Just know that we're playing with this so that we can learn and we can share with you the best results that we've had. And once we have that data, then we're definitely going to share it with you. So just know that's there and it's coming.
Yeah. And I guess this kind of segues into marketing right now is a lot of what we're doing on the back end of the podcast is working on building the group, working on automating, getting some entries into our email marketing system and creating this ecosystem where we can stay in front of our existing listeners, I guess, which for you guys would be existing customers. So, for a guy like Anthony who chimed in, getting a local Facebook group that you own or purchasing one or whatever you need to do to get in front of those homeowners, make sure that maybe somehow you give them some free value, get an email address, get that into Zapier, get that into a CRM, and you can really snowball this thing where you're constantly in front of people and build your brand that way. And that's a lot of the stuff we're testing. I know Tersh and I talk about automation and Zapier and stuff like that. This stuff is only going to become more popular. Like, for instance, the Service Titan Zapier group that I have has got like almost 900 members now. I mean, there's a ton of people in there. People just don't know where to start. And I think honestly, if anyone's listening, I would start with Ari Meisel's book. So you can start to understand the mindset. And that book is The Replaceable Founder. It's the mindset, because if you don't know how to build a process, you can't delegate it. And if you can't delegate it, you can't automate it. So it's just, you got to understand like the process and the system behind it, because otherwise you try to automate stuff that you don't even have a good process. And if it's a crappy process put into automation, it's going to be crappy automation.
Yeah, I've done that. So
I've done that too. I've done that too. And it looks like Bradley's had same problem starting point. And
it is, and it's so like we get this question all the time, and I asked Josh this. Josh asked me this, like, okay, where we were both in the same boat when we first started out with Zapier. It's like, where do you start? Like, one of the things that I really like about If This Then That, if anybody hasn't ever heard of that, it's like Zapier, but it's a little simpler to use. Is you can actually scroll through some of those and it gives you ideas on where to start. You know what I mean? Yeah. And with Zapier, you can do something similar and they're getting to where they're sharing more, but Zapier sometimes feels so high level that it's like, I'm just starting out with this. And I know air conditioning really well, but I don't know anything about this IT stuff. So I don't know where to start at. I mean, yeah, honestly, I mean, you've said this before, though. If as soon as you start a platform, like you're starting a subscription with someone or you're thinking about doing this, you hop on the Zapier and see if they have an integration. And sometimes, like we've interviewed people before on the podcast and said, hey, do you have a Zapier integration? And they're like, why? Why do you want a Zapier integration? I don't know why. I just want to know if you have one. Because if the day comes that I need something zapped, then I want to know that I can zap it. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, honestly, and me now with where I'm at with it is I won't that like as I'm doing a demo, I'll go open Zapier on a new tab and I'll make sure that they integrate with Zapier so I can, just in case I want to move data around and make this data do something else. Because once you get the hang of it, you start to see like things pop in your head like, oh, I could do this. I can move this data point to here and then have this happen. And you can really build on that.
Do you ever find that you can zap too much, or you build a zap that's really useless?
So I've spent, and part of it was because Tersh, he mentioned to me that he was going through the Replaceable Founder again, and I had never finished the book. I'd only read the first couple chapters, so I've been listening to it on Audible when I'm at the gym, and I used that at the end of 2021. And what I did is I started cleaning up my email, started creating filters for my email. I started cleaning up my zaps because I would have multiple zaps that were very similar.
Yeah.
Because it can get out of hand. Like you can get to the point where you're almost over automating stuff because you're trying to do too much.
Yeah.
So you have like a 2-step zap that if you really took that and you made it just a little bit larger automation sequence here, you could just clean it up, have one clean automation versus like 3 different ones that all kind of do the same thing.
Do you ever find that you can over zap and then you end up, I don't want to say under communicating, but like the client wow factor loses value?
So I don't zap any client communication.
Okay.
That's something that's all, don't get me wrong. There are things that I know I could because it's very consistent. Like if we do a certain tasks every month, I don't think I'll ever get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
I've thought about it and then I'm like, it's
so
hard.
like one of the things that I'm thinking of, and this isn't even a zap, it's just an integration to your success. And that's as soon as anything over $5,000 is sold, then this goes out.
Sends an email to them.
Yeah. Well, no, it sends a gift basket to them with their cookies and stuff like that. And the thing that I love the fact that I don't have to even do it. Like it just automatically does it for me. They have different tiers. So it's like 5,000 to 10,000 is one gift basket. And then 10,000 to 15,000 is a different gift basket. Less than 5,000, but over 1,000, then it's a gift card. And so, but the message that gets sent out is all automated. It's the same message every single time. And so it's like, should I be handwriting a letter to these people? But even that part of it's not scalable. You know what I mean? It's like once you're doing 15 change outs a day, then like you just have to have one person full time just handwriting letters to people, Yeah. So like thinking long term, like obviously 15 change outs a day is very long term for me, but it's one of those things.
It's not that far into the future for you.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, and honestly, I think in regards to marketing, I think that's where the biggest opportunity is, either in marketing or operations for automation. Like we got a couple guys putting some questions in here. Something like that, Ryan, that's probably going to be a Service Titan report.
Okay.
I don't think, I don't think you can. So the question is, I want to track memberships in Service Titan to give the guys bonuses continually every year for retention. Do I need Zapier for this? Stuff like that. I would always try to see if something can happen natively first. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So always try to do something natively first, because the data they're going to have all the data. Sometimes when you have a Zapier connection, you can't pull everything. Like right now, version 1, I don't think you can pull anything with reports. It's all job data.
It is.
So there's no way to track that. So for something like that, I would talk to someone at Service Titan or in the masterminds group and see if my guess is someone probably figured this out.
So you can do stuff pertaining to Task Manager. And I quit with that because Task Manager is not annoying enough, if that makes sense. I can look at some of my office staff's task management or items at to-do list or whatever, and they could have 150 tasks on there that need to be done, happy call, whatever it is. Because I mean, we do happy calls and follow-ups and that kind of stuff, and it's just not annoying enough. It's just a small red dot on the top right of the screen. But Anthony asked a good question about giving a spiff to his installers for every thank you card that they wrote. My only concern with that is if you're digital right now and like if you haven't experienced these individuals handwriting out tickets, because back whenever I first started in the industry, when I first became service manager, install manager, like all of the technicians, they had to handwrite invoices at that time. And I remember that handwriting, and I could only imagine how it would look on a thank you card that they might only be doing it to get a spiff. So I would just take that.
I still remember one of the first texts I had at the first company I worked at. It was all handwritten tickets, and we called him Dr. Murray because he literally could not read his freaking ticket at all. Like I'm like, dude, what does this say? Like, I can't read any of this, which is great that things have gone digital because stuff like that is so much better digitally. You can read everything, but yeah, now,
there are platforms. There's printing programs that you can print out
comes
something.
To mind.
Well, not only that you can print out stuff that looks like it's handwritten. Like the font itself is handwritten font, and then you as the business owner can just sign it at the end.
Well, I think Senjum has like a printer that it makes it look like it's handwritten. I think I'm sure there's other ones, but Senjum, I've seen it.
Okay.
I mean, otherwise, and this is a great topic. We might as well go deeper on this. Like, so things that I used to do that helped with automation. It wasn't really Zapier related, but with your CRM, every week I ran a report of clients that spent over a certain dollar amount, got the report, cleaned it up in 3 minutes on a Monday morning before anyone got in, sent it out to PrintFast, who was our marketing, did all of our print marketing at the time. And they sent out thank you cards. They had them all ready. They did the rest of the work. It took me 3 minutes on a Monday morning, and we got thank you gift cards out to, 50.
When you did that, how much was the investment in something like that? As
far as like the gift cards?
Yeah. Well, no, like having them write out the cards and send them out. Like what are we looking at?
Well, we didn't have them handwrite. It was more of like a templated message because the customization did cost more. Like if you wanted to take the customer's first name and put it in every card, there's an extra cost to that because they can't print it in bulk.
Yeah, exactly. That's my thought process with that.
Yeah.
And so it's like, man, at some point, once you're a certain size, like an investment into a printer of that type. I remember I think we were at 5 million whenever we were like, okay, now it's worth it to not print on a printer that we have to constantly buy new cartridges for. Now we can start to rent or lease like
a big Xerox machine, not one of the cheap ones that runs out of ink every month.
Exactly. We leased one of those platforms. I think it was through a company called Ashley or something like that. I can't remember, but they're a big print company. And I remember when we first did it, I was like, man, this is a lot of money. Like this is like, I don't know about this investment, but then we were able to start printing off stuff just like that. And then it was like, wow, we've saved a lot of money by doing this. And I just never really thought about that until it was presented to me. But then we went paperless, and then it's like, now if I have to print something, you'll hear, I got to go find some paper to put in the printer. Like I get annoyed by having to print now. It's almost, I don't know, it's comical, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, same here. I would rather, if I'm gonna have something, I'd just rather write it down or rather have it saved digitally somewhere. But just a few more ideas before we get off of like the Zapier automation train, because I've had some people to ask in that other group, like job folders. A lot of people have gone digital with job folders, and there's absolutely ways based on like sold estimate triggers or things like that where you can take that information, automatically create like a Google Drive folder, which automatically adds your checklist for whoever your install coordinator, your admin, service manager, whoever handles that stuff for you, and starts creating some of these documents automatically. It can alert them with an email or a text message or Slack, or if you use Slack, like you can create some of these things that really get the ball moving.
So I guess I question, what's the purpose in doing a job folder versus like a Trello board?
Well, you could do the same thing. You could create the automation where that job gets sold, it goes right. It creates a Trello card with all the information you want and alerts the person that needs to handle that. Yeah. And then you can get, the job detail information, like what was sold. I mean, I've even seen people, it's probably a little harder to do, but like based on the equipment, whatever equipment is chosen, it automatically fires off an email to their supplier if they don't stock the stuff right now. It's probably not a great idea to not stock some stuff these days, but you can set up things like this that make life easier, because especially if you're small, if you're still in the field or you're the guy selling this stuff, it's a lot to do to not only do the follow-ups after the estimates, to sell the job, schedule the job, get the equipment, check the equipment, make sure you have everything. Like there's some things that can really help you be efficient. So that way you don't have to add admin overhead when you're small. So you can be more profitable, reinvest back into your business, stuff like that.
The one thing that I would tell people, and this is something that I learned from Ari Mizell a while back, was, take that few minutes. It seems like, oh man, I have this is so much more work to do to get started. Just take that few minutes, take the hour, take the 2 hours, build that automation, the Zap, and then it will actually speed up the process along the way. A lot of times we're all guilty as business owners of, it's faster for me to answer the question. It's faster for me just to go ahead and do it myself. It's faster for me to I'll do this handwritten checklist on this one. And in reality, let's take a few extra minutes, especially this time of year. I mean, we're in January, and so it's kind of slow for a lot of people. Slow for me. I can't speak for people that are way up north in the tundra like you are, but
it's not slow here.
Yeah, for me, it's slow. It's a slow time of the year, typically, quote unquote, slow season. So it's that time of year whenever I can really start focusing on, all right, let's make the perfect price book. Let's make the perfect, the things that just take too much time during the
wish list items.
Yeah. And then during the summer, I got a text message from one of my guys today. He's like, oh, these proposal templates, they are amazing. He's like, thank you for doing that. I mean, I spent all one weekend just building these proposal templates with the equipment, and then even good, better, best on.
Did you not have those? Did you not build those before?
No, it's a new thing that just came out recently in Service Titan. I think it might actually still be in beta.
They had something with estimate templates or something.
They had estimate
back
templates
when I was still working in AC,
which
was really helpful.
This goes a step above that, step beyond that, and it creates the template for the whole entire proposal. So if you have a contactor that went bad, then you can do contactor and then clean condenser coil. Nice. Do the maintenance and all these good, better, best packages, and the entire thing's already pre-built, and the technician just clicks on that and says, "Here's your proposal," and so they don't have to go and rebuild them every single time.
That's kind of that's one example, but that's kind of making sure, like you said, instead of a handwritten checklist, build the checklist so it's always the same. It's these things that don't get built, and we're all guilty of it. I'm guilty of it. I'm sure, Tersh, you probably felt this way too. You have the process in your head, or at least 90% of it, but you never get it out of your head onto a piece of paper, whether that's digital or handwritten, and you suffer because of it, because something always gets forgotten or left out, or it's not the same. We forget to maybe touch base with the customer the day before the install because it's just not part of our regular defined process. Yeah.
For 2022, that's our focus. Number one within our business, Service Imper, is the client experience. And so every single time somebody asks me a question pertaining to, doing this, doing that, my response has been so far, and I hope to continue to do this throughout the year, is, put yourself in the client's shoes. How would you feel? Especially whenever we had a client that was constant on podium, they were constantly texting us, and they were asking these questions, and you could just feel the tension in the office. I mean, we're remote, and you could still feel the tension in the office. It's like, dude, stop asking so many questions. But then I felt it the same way, and my response was about to be the exact same. But then I stopped and I was like, but let me put myself in the client's shoes. Why are they having to ask all these questions? And so it's like, oh yeah, we were not clear throughout this process. And even if we did explain it, we didn't explain it in a way that they understood. So that lets me know that we need to have multiple ways to explain the same thing. And so now we're building out a process of videos that just explain the entire process through and through, and they can just keep rewatching the video instead of asking us questions constantly. That client experience is going to be the way that we look forward to it. And I challenge everyone else to do the same thing.
Well, and to add to that, so at some point, the housing market is not going to stay where it's at, and people are going to start saving money and they're going to start pulling it closer to the vest.
Yep.
You know, I've heard interest rates are supposed to go up this year. Inflation is ridiculous. So at some point, the service businesses that are operating well and operating with a net profit can sustain this. But we're going to go, I mean, it's been 13, 14 years since our last real hard dip with the home service space. At some point, it's going to change. Like, having these processes and really making sure right now why things are better than they've ever been, dial this stuff in today. Don't wait. Don't do it tomorrow. Do it today. At least start doing it today, because at some point, these businesses that haven't been running smoothly, or they don't know their pricing or what they need to be at to make their margins, they're going to suffer.
It's tough too, because like we've gone against people that, like, just be an open book. Like, our cheapest system, like bare bones cheapest system, is somewhere in $8,000 range. And we've gone against other competitors who are still using last year's prices, obviously, because they were doing $6,000
or 10 years ago pricing.
Yeah. They were on $6,000 systems and $5,000 options. And I'm like, man, that's just not even possible. You can't stay in business doing it that way. And so just make sure you're definitely up to date on your price book, and also build the value so that I love one of the things that I think you and I were talking about this yesterday or Monday. One of the things that I learned from Matt and Rodney Coop with the new flat rate when we did the course back in 2018, 19, something like that. Maybe it might have been 17, was just making our services, selling our services and not allowing the product itself becoming the commodity. A lot of people are blown away with the fact that I don't have a brand listed in my price book for equipment. And most of my clients have no idea what equipment we're going to install until we get there on site, because we don't sell based on the brand name. We sell based on Service Emperor. And we've had great success with that, because we can sell a 14 SEER heat pump system with a few options for $11,000, and they don't question it, don't bat an eye at it. If we told them, if we're saying we're going to put a Goodman in, or we're going to put a Train in, and then that becomes like, oh, well, I can see the Train being more expensive because I recognize the name, but not Goodman, or Goodman, blah, 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 whatever. Goodman doesn't have the same ratings on Edmunds or whatever, you know what I mean? So it's one of those things where we really, really focus on the fact that we want to sell our services, and that's going to be something that's really, as other people start to go out of business, as they start to struggle, knowing that you can sell yourself versus just selling a brand. Because once you get into the brand war, then it's going to be, okay, here, that's your price on your Train XR17. So now let me go find another Train dealer, and we're going to sell. We're going to see what their price is on the XR17. Then it's
and then the contractor's the commodity.
Yeah, exactly. So then you're like, okay, it doesn't matter that we get it inspected. It doesn't matter that we're going to replace, your plenums, or we're going to replace your secondary drain pan, or add all these float switches, or give you a 10-year warranty, or, those things kind of get thrown out the window whenever it's Train XR17 that we're just going to battle against each other on. So yeah, that's,
they don't value that. Like, they don't even know what that stuff is. Like a float switch, they're like, I don't know what is, like, they don't care what that is. They might know it needs to be there to help their system work. But when it comes to it, they just care about the big piece of equipment. And then they can go find the price online just about anywhere these days. Yeah.
And for me, it's like we're there to provide them with comfort to solve the problem. And by dropping a bunch of information that they're not really interested in, that's just confusing them. And a confused mind always says no. One thing that I would say about the process and procedures, if you feel like it's such a challenge, and it is a challenge, don't get me wrong. If it was super simple, there would be a lot more competitors on the market. But if you do find it as a challenge, reach out to Al Levy. I mean, we had him on the show a couple months ago. he has a whole platform where you can purchase all the processes and procedures. But one thing I would challenge you with, don't buy them and then just set them on a shelf somewhere, because we've all been guilty of that too. You buy them and then it's like, oh, wow, like let me spend all this time and effort on printing this stuff out, which annoys me to even think about. But you print out all this stuff and then it goes on a shelf, like my books back here behind me, and then nobody ever sees them, and the dust, gets on them. And then you like 5 years from now, somebody's like, well, so-and-so fell off of a ladder. Well, did they not read the process and procedure on ladder safety, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, no, it's covered in 6 inches of dust. So, have them. That's the one thing that Ari mentioned in the podcast episode too, was have everybody reading them every meeting that you have, like read one process and procedure for every meeting, which I thought was a great idea.
That's a great idea. Like once a week you have that, just one process, go over it and make sure all the questions are answered, because ultimately, just because you build a process, people are going to have questions, because everybody interprets things differently. So if you're not talking about this stuff regularly, you're not going to get those questions answered, which if they don't know, like Tersh said, if you're confused or don't know, they're probably just going to ignore it.
Yeah. A confused person says no. But not only that, if you're thinking about doing your own process, like building your own process out for anything, here's one thing, like listen to these steps, and I challenge you to do it this way. Every time I've done this, it's kind of blown my mind at how accurate this statement's going to be for you. So what I would do is, if you're going to video record it, handwrite the process down. I find that if I tell people, like I could tell my CSR to handwrite the process of when a new client comes in, how to add them to ServiceTitan. Like I can say that to handwrite it, but it just never gets done. So what I say is, like, let's video record it. I want you to tell me the steps in the video recording. And then I'm going to send it off to a VA. You can use someone like GetMagic or someone off of Fiverr and say, okay, take this transcription, take this video, and then create a workflow from it, create the process from it. And then you give that workflow to someone else. You can give it to a service tech. Give it to somebody else. And now have that person that doesn't have a clue what they're doing follow the process and notate where they get stuck. Fix that process, resend it back out to get the workflow repaired, give it to a different person, have them redo it. And if it's fixed, it's fixed. But if it's not fixed, notate where you have the holes, fix those, and resend it back out to your VA. And that, creating that so that anybody can do it, that's going to be the goal right there. Because then if something happens, heaven forbid someone gets sick with the virus or anything like that, and you have to bring someone else new in, like, it's there, and it's bulletproof because you've had 3 other people do it and they did it successfully. So that sounds like a lot of time, but once you start doing it, it gets real fast. And that was
one of my favorite chapters in his book. I did the email stuff first, and I stopped it. I didn't go back to the book until I implemented what he said. But then he got to the processing, and I used to do that kind of unknowingly. Like I would make videos because it was easier for me to explain than trying to type it out and then send it to my project manager.
I love the fact that I did emails. I did videos, but I that's where I stopped. So I would create videos. I have 300 videos in our YouTube that are unlisted, that are nothing but processes and procedures. But then I was getting frustrated because nobody was watching them. I'm like, why am I spending so much time doing this stuff? And then nobody would tell me that, well, I don't really understand all of it. There's some stuff that's missing out of it, and I can't put my finger on it. And I was like, well, hell, I'm not going to keep wasting time doing that. And we all fall into that trap of, if nobody's watching it, I'm not going to keep wasting my time doing it.
And that brings us back to your point of making sure you are actually talking about this stuff in your meetings.
Yeah.
Don't let it sit there, because if they're confused, instead of standing up in front of the group and saying, yeah, I don't really understand this, they're just going to be like, well, whatever. I don't care.
Yeah. And if nobody else is saying it, maybe they all understand it, and I just am the only one that doesn't understand it. So I'm definitely, I love that thought process. And then what the greatest thing about it for me because I've been doing like getting on Zoom because our girls are virtual. And so like, I'm like, all right, I'm just going to sit here and I'm not doing anything, but I'm on Zoom. If you have a question, if you start to skip something, just ask me. We'll go through it and we'll work the process out. There's a lot of stuff that they didn't know what they were doing. Like they just straight up didn't have a clue, or they were winging it. And they're like, I'm not sure if this is right, but this is what I always put. And I'm like, oh, shoot.
Well, and then you get, and I was talking to someone last night on the phone about the problem with data is if you put in bad data, guess what you're going to get out? You're not going to be able, those reports are not going to make sense. The data is not going to be great. And now you're running your business essentially blind because you have bad information.
Yeah. I mean, and it's something as simple as marking someone as a residential client when they're actually a commercial client. And then you're doing
I remember fixing that. I realized that at some point, like everyone was getting put in residential. I'm like, well, that's a commercial business. Yeah. And then I went, you're going through and you're changing all, but it absolutely, just the littlest things like that could totally throw off reporting that you run for your business and create a massive nightmare.
Yeah. 100%. We could talk for days on that, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Brandon, I think you typed too much, so it actually cut you off. But back to what you were talking about, Tersh, when we're talking about education and clients and stuff like that, he had a great point. Your customer is ultimately a learner, a student that makes you a teacher. And we're all experts. Like that's why all of you started your business. You're an expert at something, right? And you need to be the person in your market that is the expert. And give that knowledge to other people, because here's the thing. Everyone's worried about someone DIYing something because they gave some information away, right? Like I literally give away like almost my entire playbook. Like, here, this is what we do. You can do it too, because you can. Just like I can learn to do air conditioning stuff. I don't want to, but I can. But give it away because people, it helps people learn. The people that want to do it themselves will appreciate you giving your information and helping them. And two, you're the expert then. You're the guy at the front of the classroom with a full auditorium of students or on the presentation stage, and they trust you because obviously they know what they're talking about. They're the teacher, right? Or they're the one in their market in the Facebook groups giving away valuable information when it's going to get cold, like we talked about when your email campaign, when it was going to get cold.
Yeah.
Give that valuable information on how they can protect their house, how they can make things more efficient, because people, it brings a level of trust that is really hard to build otherwise, because people don't see you enough. But if they hear from you through email, through phone call, or Facebook groups locally, it builds that level of trust.
I love what you said there. And I'm going to ask you this question to challenge you and ask kind of, I don't know, not really, challenge is probably not the best word to say. I want to know how much is too much, because there are times where like I really love getting emails from certain people, but then I'm like, all right, bro, you got to stop. Like 3 a day is too much for me. So you're going into the optional folder. But like, even if you're educating people, is there a point to where it's too many emails a day or too many emails a week?
So yes, I would make sure that if you're doing a bulk email to your customer list, make sure you have something valuable to say. Don't just send an email just because, well, that's what I do. I send an email every week on Wednesday, because if you're just sending kind of like emails that don't have any value nuggets to them or something new that they haven't heard, you're kind of wasting your time. And then you just it's white noise, right? You see it, these guys haven't put anything good. Like, I know which blogs I get always have valuable information, and those ones always stay in my inbox. Other ones go into the look into folder. I haven't looked into, not optional. But have something valuable to say, or honestly do some research on, and I've covered this a few times on different things, but go to Google, type in a keyword, go to the people also ask section on Google, find something that people are asking about, and answer that question in a video, an email, a blog, Facebook, whatever. But go do some research, because people are searching for these things and you don't even realize it. You just have to put in a little extra work to, put something together for that. But yeah, I mean, honestly, as far as contractors go, I would say no more than like 2 bulk emails a month.
Okay. So every other week.
I don't think I would do weekly unless you have like multiple trades and you got like, I mean, otherwise you're not going to have enough to say that I think is super valuable. That way, when people get an email from you, they know it's a valuable piece of information.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, and granted, I know it's the US, we don't have a ton of soccer fans here, but the World Cup is every 4 years. The reason it's beautiful is because it's every 4 years. It's not like if they had it every year, just like the Super Bowl. Like the Super Bowl is great and everything, but a lot of people don't remember who won the last couple of years because it's every single year. It becomes too much.
So if the NFL commissioner is listening right now, you should take note to drop it back to 4 years.
Yeah, Roger and his $50 million a year salary.
So Steve Cassette, and by the way, Steve, congratulations on your training platform with Lowe's. I just seen that press release. So Steve has mentioned a couple things here about data and bringing in data, and then it being can be messed up also if it's not entered correctly. Can be exported incorrectly as well. And then if you're building automation like we were talking about earlier in the show, and your trash data, your data that's coming in is junk. Like Steve mentioned it, the CSR, if they're putting the last name first and first name last, and then it gets exported to a platform. It's Steve Cassette, not Steve. Steve. Oh shoot, what am I thinking? Steve. I'm having a brain fart right now. Anyways, if they're putting that data in backwards though, and then you export it to a Google Docs or whatever, and then you're sending that Google Docs to MailChimp or something like that. Now all of a sudden you're putting in data, like if you are using their first name, last name type scenario, then you're putting that data in wrong. And then it's like, oh, they just automated this. I mean, I just got an email the other day from a group from what's his name?
Is your coffee wearing off?
10X guy. Yeah, my coffee is wearing off.
Oh, Brandon and Grant.
Yeah. Grant Cardone. And I got an email from him, and I had already had a conversation with about this exact email with them. And so I'm like, all right, so I'm in your funnel twice because you've automatically sent me the same email twice. And the first time we had a conversation about it, and now the second time it's resent to me. I'm like, I know that this is fake or whatever. And so then it's like devalues the entire relationship because it's like, I'm just in your funnel. You know what I mean? So, and that's going to happen, especially if you're sending it out to a lot of people. But I would warn you about it. I mean, try and be as careful as possible. And that goes back to attention to detail, and your CSR needing to be that person that's an attention to detail person.
Yeah, we had to do the same thing because the administrator at the company I was working at, for QuickBooks purposes, and it makes sense, right? Like the last name's a lot easier to search for than the first name. So you put the last name, comma, first name. But when I did email automation and stuff like that, I had to fix it and use the formatter step in Zapier to like pull that stuff apart and then re-put it together how I wanted to put it together.
But then what happens if you get a new CSR in and then you build out the process?
Put first name, last name.
Yeah. And your processes aren't built out properly, and you haven't done the videos like we mentioned earlier. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a touchy thing. Automation is something that you can't set it and forget it. That's for sure.
No, it's you always have to look at it. And if there's a problem, you got to fix it right away. Or, I mean, believe it or not, and this is something not a lot of people know, there are literally marketing agencies. That's all they do is build zaps. That's all they do. I have anything that's like over my head, or I just cannot figure out what I'm missing. I send an email to my guy. He takes care of it for me, charges me, and I'm happy. Like he fixes it. Like this morning I sent him one. I just couldn't figure out this one step I'm missing. And it's a more complicated step, but he got me back to me this morning, fixed it. And now I can fix all the other ones that we have for other people. But there's people that literally do this stuff every day. You can reach out to, just pay a little bit of money. You got to know what you want to do. But pay a little bit of money, they'll fix it for you, and they'll make sure your data's right.
Well, that's the challenge sometimes, is knowing exactly what you want to do. Like I kind of know what it ends that I want at the end, but I don't know what I want at the end. Like, you know what I mean? So it's a clear message, because that frustrates everybody involved if it's like a very vague message, and then they get finished with what you want done, and then or what you tell them, and then you change it up on them. You're like, oh, that's not what I wanted, but it's kind of like what I wanted. I really wanted this over here. And then like, come on, man. Like, seriously, figure out what you want and then give me a message back.
Yeah, I wanted to touch base. Brandon had a question. So when you're emailing or you're touching base with customers in your space, we talked about bulk emails. Now, bulk emails it's just to stay in touch with people. The biggest, I would say, golden ticket for customers, like Scott Woodward was in the House Call Pro group yesterday. And he's like, holy crap, I didn't even realize I have 12,000 emails in his database and he's never done any kind of email marketing. I'm like, dude, like that is a gold mine. Like you need to start, take a course like right now and learn how to start email marketing. But when it comes to email marketing, it's really segmenting your audience, not sending the same stuff to every single person. Because if somebody just bought a new furnace from you, you're not going to send them the same content as somebody who's on your maintenance agreement.
That's a great point.
It has to be differentiated that way.
Or don't try and sell them a new furnace and they're like, come on, dude, you just sold me one. Don't send me that.
Yeah, right. Because they're going to be like,
especially one with a $500 gift card on it or discount for your next furnace. And you're like, hey, I just bought one. Can I have another $500 discount?
Yeah. Can I get that $500 gift card you just sent me? And then you have that awkward, like, yeah, that really wasn't for you. Our marketing department sucks. But segmenting that audience, because you think about it, like there's three main types of customers. There's two really. There's the proactive and the reactive. Proactive are the maintenance customers that are on your membership plan. They hire you in advance because they want to take care of their stuff. So they're going to be interested in preventative maintenance tips, filter changes. If you have a filter store, get them back to your filter store on your website regularly. And the demand service customer, well, they wait till shit breaks, right? That's just what they do. They're like, yeah, whatever, I don't care. But what you do after that call is try to turn them into a maintenance customer through education. So they realize why it's so important that they get their maintenance done so they don't ever feel that pain again. And now, again, you're building your maintenance base. Your maintenance base is what keeps you busy 12 months a year if you're in HVAC, but it can have the same effect in plumbing or electrical stuff like that. It keeps you busy 12 months a year. Now instead of laying guys off or only giving them 25 to 30 hours, you got so much work. You're trying to bring in new people when everybody else is slow, and you're taking top talent because those top talent guys, those guys get paid well and they want to get paid well. And if they're going to have work 40 plus hours a week, they're going to be happy, plus spiff opportunities. So I think, I think that is something that you really got to segment that stuff and put questions in the group. Like, just what kind of content? I have literally notebook page. Like one of my things for the beginning of the year was, I took my 20 or 22 notebook pages of email ideas that I've had over the course of, a number of years. And I like put it into one doc and separate it. Cause I'm like, man, I got all these ideas, but they're all over the place. Right.
Oh yeah.
And it's like a spider web. It's all over the place. And I don't really know where they all are. I organized it so that way it can be, bam, here's our list. Here's some ideas to get you started. And start segmenting your list. But segmenting, you can do that through some CRMs have a native platform like Service Titan. Otherwise, you got to connect with a third party like Constant Contact or MailChimp. But it absolutely can be done. And like follow-ups on estimates. What a great way to start getting automation into your business.
Even like we have something called what's it called? The 365 follow-up. I think it's what it's called.
Yep, that's
and
what it's
so
called.
Doing that, something like that, and creating an automation platform or an automation sequence that until something's triggered, like create the trigger, like until they do something, keep sending this out. And so for the next 365 days from the time you submitted a proposal to them, it can do a follow-up sequence. And doing something like that, I mean, that automates it completely. We've actually had people 3 months pass by and they're like, hey, are our prices still good on this stuff? Because we'd like to go ahead and change out this equipment. And I'd forgotten about it, like completely forgotten. And I dropped the ball completely on it. I mean, 100% my fault, but the email sequence that was going out and the follow-up process that was going out, that's what saved us on it. The prices were not good, by the way, because we had just gone through and had a huge price jump by all of our manufacturers because it was at the end of the year. But still that we were able to have the conversation and continue the conversation on further and eventually sell those systems.
Yeah, no, this is such a, I mean, I love talking about this stuff. I guess we are coming up on an hour here.
Yeah.
A couple of things that we did want to touch on. If any of you guys are going to AHR, Tersh and I will be there. That's only in a week and a half. So by the time we actually get this edited, I'm sure it'll already be there. A week and a half back to Vegas, which is, I could do without Vegas, but we'll have fun anyway.
I love the fact that we're on the West Coast. I mean, I'm not it's not like I'm a huge fan of West Coast or anything like that, but I love the fact that we're over there because we have a lot of audience that's over there and we don't always get to see them. When AHR is in Atlanta, then Orlando, then Chicago, getting out to the West Coast, it gives us the opportunity to actually see each other and in person. And so that's really cool. I love that part of it.
Yeah. So Tersh and I will be in Media Row. Or media, whatever it's called.
Podcast pavilions.
Okay, that sounds way better. Podcast pavilions. And then, so if you guys are there, or if you're planning on attending or even stopping by for a day, if you're in the area, say, hey, say
we'll be walking around
face to face.
We'll be walking around the booths also. I know we'll be at Johnson Controls booth, Supco booth, Solder Weld, HVAC school, lots of different booths. So.
Yeah, and if you guys, when we go live with those, if you guys have questions and stuff, because we're going to be talking about a whole bunch of different stuff that's not probably the stuff that we always talk about, like business, leadership, management, stuff like that. We're going to be talking about what's coming out, what's new, technology, stuff like that. So it's a great opportunity. If there's questions you have about what the future holds, this is a great event to get those questions out. Is there anything else we're going to this spring? I don't know. You usually tell me and I just like, yeah, okay, I'll get a plane ticket.
I will be at the HVAC school symposium in February. That'll be in Orlando, Florida in February. So I'll be there. I'm trying to think. In March, I'll be in Tampa, I believe, for CEO Warrior group that is it's for the public. They're doing an event in Tampa. Obviously we'll be back at EGIA. And I want to go to the WED event, but I don't think I'm actually going to make it to WED event.
That's usually in February, isn't it?
I feel like it is. And I think that's the reason why I can't go, because I have so much going on with AHR and everything. But I'm trying to think. That's about it. Now, we do have a lot of EGIA stuff that is coming through the pipeline in the future and now with online events that are either free or close to free events. So you need to check those out, and we'll continue to share those inside of the group. We've got some amazing corporate sponsors that are coming on board also that are able to help support the show, which is awesome also. And we'll share those as that comes along.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff coming on. I think there's a couple of EGI webinars coming up. And as you guys know, those are webinars get put on by guys like Gary Alex, Drew Cameron, Weldon Long, like the who's who, the guys that have been there, done it. They've trained thousands of people to do it. Yep. So they're great opportunities to get some valuable training early in the year. So take a look at those. We have them listed as events on our Facebook group.
Speaking of Drew Cameron, he'll be on the show later this afternoon also. So
yeah, don't miss that one. Drew is such an awesome guy. Love
last time I was talking to Drew, I had my Notability out on my iPad, and I'm like, I had like carpal tunnel.
Slow down,
5 minutes
Drew.
after.
Slow down, buddy.
I'm writing, man, as fast as I can. Stop. But yeah, and Podium has been sponsoring the show for the past couple of months, and we really appreciate everything that Podium does. The group over there, I've used Podium for years beforehand. That's one of our stipulations is that we need to use the platform or test the platform out before we would recommend it as a sponsor of the show. And so Podium has been gracious enough to help support the show, and supporting the show allows us to go meet people in person and do those kinds of things. So huge shout out to them and everybody else who's helped support the show.
Yeah, and I guess to just finish that point, and then we can finish up here. Anyone that we do bring on as a sponsor this year is going to be well vetted. Like it's going to be someone that we believe in. We're not just doing it if someone's throwing dollars at us for the show and stuff like that. Like that is never the goal with the show. The goal is to give you guys the best resources we can. And if it doesn't work out, we'll just continue to do it for free.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. And people don't realize how much this takes out of us. And we really love it. We enjoy it. But just think about this real fast. We do this every single Wednesday. So we take an entire day out of our week every single week to do this, plus another day of editing and planning and everything else. So that's at least 52 days out of the year that we're doing this. That's 2 months worth of actual work where we're not involved in our personal business on a day-to-day interaction. But thankfully we've got some automation and some very strict scheduling that makes something like that very possible. So huge shout out to Josh to be able to switch and pivot and do that when he came on board with me on the show. So
yeah, no, looking forward to a great year. If anyone has suggestions on guests, we're always looking for great guests. I got some ideas for some unique marketing topics this year, not marketing companies, but actual people doing different things in marketing. And anything that you guys have run across that you think is really unique and you think getting that content out there would be helpful is someone we're always interested in talking to, because that's the goal of the show, is to not necessarily be like every other show and have the same guests. It's to bring people that are actually doing this stuff today into the show. So that way you can actually learn from people that literally are doing what you're doing every day.
Absolutely. Cool. Thank you, Josh. I'll be talking to you again in a few minutes.
I'm sure you will.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to or watching this episode of the Service Business Mastery podcast. I really value the comments and the questions that we've had along the show, this recording. And if anybody has any questions after the fact, don't hesitate to reach out to either one of us, Tersh or Josh. And it's our email is tersh@servicebusinessmastery.com, josh@servicebusinessmastery.com. It's a little updated versus what we used to have in the past. We want to keep it kind of segmented so that we get your questions answered in a timely manner. But with that being said, I hope you have a wonderful and safe day. Until we talk again next time, be safe out there. And thank you again. See you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Service Business Mastery. Now that you are equipped with essential business advice from this impactful conversation, you are one step closer to becoming the successful owner of your dreams. If this episode has been helpful to your business journey, don't forget to subscribe to the show, leave a rating, and share it with other owners as well. Visit servicebusinessmastery.com to learn more.